Hello, District 28 parents and guardians. This is Larry Hewitt, Superintendent of Schools. We're here to talk about options for the 2021 school year, and this is as of July 17th, 2020. My goal is to provide you with the most up-to-date information for the 2021 school year so you can make an informed decision. So what is that decision? We have two options for schooling for next year. One is daily on-site in-person instruction, and the second would be daily remote instruction. If any of you are thinking about unenrolling your child because maybe you're going to homeschool or you're going to send your child to a private school, please let us know as soon as possible. Before I get into some specific details, I want to walk through some what I would call big picture realities for this coming school year. Let's first understand this is going to be an unconventional year. It's not going to be business as usual. We know that there is still a pandemic going on and that we have to deal with that. The second big picture reality is that we operate under state oversight, which means we don't have independent authority to make certain decisions. So we have to follow the rules and regulations established by the state. Third, the regional and local health conditions are going to impact what we do and when we do it and how we do it. So as the conditions change in our region, we are all going to have to be flexible. Point number 4 is there's no such thing as no risk, but there are things we can do to reduce risk. So effective mitigation strategies do exist, and of course their purpose is to reduce risk. It isn't one strategy that makes or breaks us, but there is a layering of several strategies that is helpful. The last component in terms of big picture reality is that there are going to be external conditions, things that are out of our locus of control, that will cause us to have to adjust some of the things that are in this plan. So we have those external pieces, but there are also some internal decisions that we may make over time that are designed to improve our outcomes or address issues as they crop up. This slide is from the Restore Illinois plan put out by the state of Illinois. And the only reason I put this up here is that currently we are in phase 4. Phase 4 means schools can open, but under certain guidance from the Illinois Department of Public Health. And we're going to go through all of those things later on. But please keep in mind, this is where we have to be flexible. It's possible that we go back to phase 3 or phase 2 or phase 1, which means public schools are closed under these existing rules. We feel it's important to give families an option or a choice between remote learning and in-person instruction. So the decision for each child for the first half of the year is due Tuesday, July 28th. And this will be good through Friday, December 18th, which takes us up to winter break. And then the decision for the second half of the year, so if someone wants to change or to keep the current placement, that's going to be due by Friday, December 4th. I'm now going to go through why these particular dates are important. So why July 28th? Every student has to be placed on a class roster, and every teacher has to be assigned to a class. If we don't know which students are going to be in remote learning or which students are going to be in in-person instruction, we can't create our class lists and we can't assign teachers. Daily schedules for all of our core and special area subjects must also be finalized. So we have draft plans, but again, the number of students who are in either option 1 or option 2 are going to be will impact our decisions. So we can't move ahead until after July 28th, and that's why that date is important. So why are we asking for this decision through December 18th? Well, this is already an unpredictable time. And so the best way for us to improve effectiveness of instruction is we have to create consistency, continuity, and predictability. So if a student is moving back and forth between in-person and remote learning, that's going to create lots of issues related to our staffing that we've already established, class sizes that have already been put in place. And the fact is, we do have space limitations and restrictions with the 6-foot social distancing that's going to be required, which I'm going to talk about later. Additionally, adjustments are going to be easier for all of us when they can occur simultaneously. And by using winter break, we have that 2-week window of time where we can reestablish our class lists and make sure everyone is properly placed. I want to highlight pre-kindergarten and kindergarten for a moment. So if you have a child who is going to be, has been in the Young Explorers program or is going to be, there will be something similar to this coming out early next week to explain how the Young Explorers program will look. And we also want to remind our kindergarten parents that the state does not require full day kindergarten. So if you feel that your 5-year-old or 6-year-old needs more of a break, we will schedule this half day program so that we have our academic focus when your kids are present. That would be reading, writing, and math. And then depending on the numbers who opt into the half day program, we could have AM and PM half day only sections, or we could have all of the kids full day and half day in a classroom, and then the half day students would depart sometime around 11:15 or so. As I stated earlier, we are under the oversight of the state of Illinois, so they have established certain requirements that we have to meet and fulfill in order to open for in-person instruction. So each of these items I'll be going through on the slides to follow. The one I'm not going to be spending any time on is the middle one, no more than 50 in one space. That is self-explanatory. Here are the requirements for face coverings. Every student and every staff member must wear a face covering when inside. If we're outside, face coverings may be removed, but we still have to keep that 6-foot social distancing or physical distancing maintained, and we will. Breaks from face covering will be built into the day, and there are lots of options for that. Outdoor classes where teachers may take their kids outside, sit under a shade tree. We'll have recess, we'll have lunch opportunities, and then any time a teacher feels it's warranted, they can take their class outside so that the kids can take off the face coverings. In order to keep everyone safe, there are very limited circumstances under which a student cannot or does not wear a face covering. And in order for that to happen, you got to have a physician's note that states the child is unable to wear a face covering, and we have to understand the medical condition has to be explained. This is not simply going to the doctor and asking for a note. That's not going to work. There has to be a medical condition for that to happen. Anyone may wear a face shield, and that would be staff and students, in addition to a face covering, but not in lieu of. So it's not one or the other. It has to be face covering. It could be a face shield, but only with the face covering. We're going to now talk about how 6-foot physical distancing is going to work in our schools. So the state says that this has to be done as much as possible. So there may be some situations where kids get closer than 6 feet, but it's going to be for a very short period of time. And why is that? Well, in our classrooms and all of our learning spaces, we're going to place our desks and wherever kids might be working, they're going to be 6 feet apart. We're going to set it up that way. In our traditional, right, as well as our non-traditional instructional spaces, What do I mean by non-traditional spaces? This would be our libraries, multi-purpose rooms, gymnasiums. We will have some of our classrooms in these spaces because we have class size limits or caps in our existing rooms with this 6-foot social distancing in place. That means we have to cap class size at this approximately 13 to 15. That would be most of our rooms in our schools can handle that many kids. And then we do have several larger rooms that will allow for 16 or more. And so, under those conditions, all of those spaces, kids will be 6 feet or more apart. How else are we going to handle this physical distancing? New procedures will be established at each of our schools to manage how kids are arriving and how we're dismissing so that we don't have, say, 400 kids at the school all showing up at the same time. We'll also be dealing with how kids travel in the hallway, bathrooms, any aspect of kids moving about the building. We will have 6-foot social distancing in mind. We also have two 30 by 60 foot tents for each school. These will be obviously set up on our fields somewhere, and these will be available for outdoor classes, for recess time, and for lunch. Really anything that teachers feel would be beneficial. And the benefit, obviously, of a tent is even if it rains, we're going to be able to go outside. Now, not if we have thunderstorms or anything that is severe weather, but rain, we definitely can get our kids outside with the tents. The state is also mandating that daily health checks are happening. And the way we're going to handle this is parents must self-certify each child daily, and there are going to be 4 questions that you have to answer. We're going to come up with a technological solution, all of the school districts in the township are, so that it's as easy as possible. It's going to take just a matter of a few seconds per child in order to self-certify. So here's question number 1. Has your child experienced any of these following symptoms during the last 24 hours? Now remember, this is a requirement for us. The second question, has your child been diagnosed with COVID-19 in the past 14 days? The third question, has your child been in contact with anyone who has been diagnosed with COVID-19 in the past 14 days? And then number 4, has your child traveled outside the state of Illinois in the past 14 days? If the answer is yes to any of the first 3, not the fourth question, but the first 3, then the child cannot come to school. And I put in the language from the Illinois State Board of Education down here. Individuals who exhibit symptoms should be referred to a medical provider for evaluation, treatment, and information about when they can return to school. So this is something that's going to have to be done daily. We're going to make it hopefully as painless as possible. The last piece about the daily health check is that staff also must self-certify on a daily basis. Some additional safety information I want to share with you. All school campuses will be closed except to essential visitors. Parents are encouraged to conduct school business through email or the phone. And then if coming to school is absolutely necessary to do business, visitors will be limited to the front office. This next state requirement deals with exclusion of students and staff who are ill. So individuals who do test positive for COVID-19 or who show signs and symptoms of the illness will not be allowed in the school. And then our school nurses are working with the Illinois Department of Public Health to make sure that we understand the guidelines and so we can give clear direction to our families on what to do. Any individual during the school day who shows symptoms will be immediately separated from the rest of the school population and sent home. When we do have a confirmed case of COVID-19, all families whose children are within the same classrooms will be notified. But please understand, we cannot release the name of any infected person, as this would be a violation of federal law. There are several new rules and regulations relating to hygiene and cleaning and disinfection, and I want to go through what we're going to be doing to make sure that our kids and staff are as safe as possible. So each classroom will be equipped with a hand sanitizer and wipes to clean hands and surfaces throughout the day. High-touch areas are going to be cleaned frequently. We are working to hire additional custodians to man all of these cleaning responsibilities during the school day. We must follow CDC guidelines with EPA-approved disinfectants, and we have that, we understand what those are, and we're ready to go with that. And then we also are evaluating our HVAC systems. We've worked with a company that has expertise in indoor air quality, so we're making sure that we have the maximum outdoor air intake into our schools and classrooms as much as our system allows, and as well we are working to make sure that we have the highest level of air filtration that's allowable for our equipment. Additionally, any area used by a person who tests positive will be closed until cleaning and disinfection has occurred, and we'll be ready to do that immediately. Also, shared materials and objects are disallowed or restricted. So we're going to minimize that as much as possible. But if there is any sharing, they must be sanitized after each use. So again, we're going to try to minimize that. Frequent hand washing is going to be encouraged and scheduled into the day for children. We also are going to require kids to use water bottle filling stations, and we have ordered additional ones so that they are more readily available. Next, we are going to talk about our requirements for bus transportation. We are encouraging parents to drive your children to school if that's at all possible. In order to help with traffic congestion that might occur, or that I should say that will occur, we may be staggering our start and end times by 10 to 15 minutes at schools to help with that. The reason we're encouraging that is because although the state allows up to 50 riders on a bus, we're not going to do that. We're going to be limiting this to one person to a seat. So on a 72 passenger bus, that's about 20 students. And on the smaller 36 passenger buses that we have, that's going to be about 10 students. They will be, like I said, one per seat. And as you may recall or know, they have high backs. So there's kind of a natural barrier that's built in throughout the bus. Parents, you must self-certify your children before they board the bus. So this is not just before they get to school. We want to make sure that you've done the self-certification before they're in contact with other kids. And face coverings must be worn on the bus at all times. I'm going to briefly talk about our core and special area subjects. So students will have core subjects each day. And then for the elementary, the art, the music, the Spanish, that's going to occur in the students' regular classrooms. So teachers will be traveling to the classroom rather than all the classrooms traveling and ending up at different times of the day and throughout the week in one room. So that's going to be a change. This may cause us to have to reduce some of our specials time, but not by a lot. Also, the number of sections that we're adding is going to cause some of that limitation. Physical education, it's going to be held primarily outside. And if it's inclement weather, if the gym's available, or we may have to be in a regular classroom where we might be doing some health education, or some of our schools have multi-purpose rooms that might be available. As far as lunch goes, that's going to be in the classroom. could be also be in a multi-purpose room, or it could be outside underneath a tent, or again, we could use some of our shade trees that are out there. All lunches, however, must be packed at home and brought to school by the students. There is not going to be delivery from food vendors. You may recall non-essential visitors to the building are not going to be allowed. And then lastly, students, elementary students, will be receiving a morning and an afternoon recess. Some additional information related to Northbrook Junior High. So we will have the 10-period day. Students are going to travel to the various classrooms. So our students will be mixed throughout the day. And this is, the reason for this has to do with our different instructional levels for math, language arts, as well as French and Spanish. So it's just not possible to take, say, a group of 20 kids and they're all going to go through the day at the same time. That's too challenging because they have different math levels, different language arts levels. Some may be in French, some may be in Spanish, and even those have different levels within them. Each student at the junior high will be supplied with a disinfectant wipe at the beginning of each class period, and they'll be required to wipe down their particular area or desktop. And that way we can ensure that we have a sanitized workspace for your child. We certainly don't have custodial staff available that can do that throughout the day. So this is something that the students are more than capable of doing. The passing periods will be staggered, and the point of that is to limit the number of students in the hallway at any one point in time so that we can maintain as much social distancing as possible. The last set of bullet points for NBJH, again, I've talked about physical education, and that could be in many different places. Students will not change clothes for PE classes. Lunch, as I said, could be in the classroom, multi-purpose space, or outside. Math and language arts, because we're going to have 80-minute blocked periods, that reduces one transition period each day for students. And then we're also going to do that same thing for PE and electives, and that also reduces or eliminates transition time. Let's now spend a couple minutes on remote learning. So remote learning is going to be impacted by the number of students who are in remote learning. Until we know that, I can only speak generally about what this is going to look like. So if we have small number of students, then it's very possible that we would have, say, a district-wide third grade class or a district-wide fifth grade class taught by a remote learning teacher. Or we could have what we call banded grades, where we have a K1 class taught by a remote learning teacher and a 2-3 class taught by another remote learning teacher, or a 4-5 class. For the junior high, we're not able to do that because of the subject matter expertise of our teachers. It's just not possible. If we have a larger number of students, then we will have more teachers that will be assigned to remote learning, which will give us more flexibility. Remote learning will not look like what it did this past spring. So we've been working to make improvements and adjustments, and one thing you're going to see, there will be more synchronous learning experiences for the students. And secondly, and just as importantly, there will be more structure for the students at all of the grade levels. So that means students will follow a daily schedule of classes. Once again, once we know how many students from each grade level are going to be in remote learning, then we'll be able to provide more detailed information for those families who've selected that option. Here is some closing information. So obviously we've put a great deal of time and effort into getting to this point, but we also know there's a great deal more that we have to do to create as safe a learning environment as possible. We are creating a frequently asked questions document, And you can help us with that by emailing your questions to faq2020@northbrook28.net. Please understand, if the state makes any changes, we will have to make changes and adjustments also. The Board of Education will discuss this plan at a special board meeting on July 21st at 7 p.m., which will be virtual. And then the regular July 28th board meeting will be in person and will also be live streamed, and that's at 7:15 p.m. There's no way we can do this without your help and support, so thank you so much.